6. Latitudes and longitudes. Let's learn about locating places. What are latitudes? What are longitudes? Radhika, what do you think? Which method represents the Earth more clearly? I think a globe can represent the Earth clearly. Locating places. Globes and maps are the two methods that represent the Earth. They both help us to find the places easily. Now let's learn how to find a place on Earth. The globe is a spherical model of the Earth. It helps us to find a place on the Earth. When you look at a globe, you will find that it has an axis that helps it to spin around. This imaginary axle is known as the axis of the Earth. The axis of the Earth meets the surface of the Earth at two places, namely the North Pole and the South Pole. You will also notice that a line passes between half of the Earth. This line is known as the equator. It divides the Earth into two hemispheres or the equal halves. The region above the equator is known as the northern hemisphere, while the region below the equator is known as the southern hemisphere. The North Pole lies in the northern hemisphere and the South Pole lies in the southern hemisphere. What are latitudes? Latitudes are the horizontal imaginary lines that run parallel to the equator. Latitude lines circle the globe in an east-west direction. Equator is also a latitude that passes through the center of the Earth. The other latitudes are parallel to the equator and to each other. Latitudes are measured as angles north or south of the equator. There are total of 181 latitudes, of which equator is one latitude. There are 90 latitudes towards the north of equator and 90 latitudes towards the south of equator. As you move towards the poles, the circular lines of latitudes become smaller due to the spherical shape of the Earth. The equator is the largest circular line of latitude. The latitudes of North Pole and South Pole are points and not circular lines. Some of the important lines of latitudes are equator at 0 degree, Tropic of Cancer at 23.5 degree north, Tropic of Capricorn at 23.5 degree south, Arctic Circle at 66.5 degree north, Antarctic Circle at 66.5 degrees south. What are longitudes? Longitudes are vertical imaginary lines that run from the North Pole to the South Pole. They are also known as meridians of longitudes. There are 360 lines of longitudes which do not run parallel to each other. The central line of longitude is known as the prime meridian. It is located at 0 degree. The prime meridian divides the Earth into two halves, Eastern Hemisphere and Western Hemisphere. There are 180 lines of longitudes from the prime meridian to the Western Hemisphere and 180 lines of longitudes from the prime meridian to the Eastern Hemisphere. At about 180 degree longitudes lies a line known as the International Date Line. This line passes through the Greenwich Observatory. It is also known as the Greenwich Meridian. All the lines of longitudes are of equal length and they cut lines of latitudes at right angles. The maximum distance between the longitudes is at the equator. As we move away from the equator, the distance between the two longitudes decreases. Look at the globe given. You will see the lines of latitudes and longitudes in this globe. These lines together form a grid. This grid is known as the geographic grid. This geographic grid helps us to find any place on a globe. Now, let's find the time using the longitudes. Time is different at different places. When the sun shines overhead on a longitude, then it is noon. We know that the earth rotates from west to east. So, the places located in the east have noon before the places located on the west. For instance, Mumbai and San Francisco have a 12-hour gap of time due to rotation of the earth. So, we want to find the time of a day, then we can do it using the longitudes and the location of the sun. Do you know? The international date line is the line from where each day of a calendar starts and ends. When you step towards the east from the line, then you land into a new day, and when you step backward towards the west, then you land in the previous day. Words to remember: meridian. A meridian is the half of an imaginary great circle on the earth's surface. Brush up. The globe is a spherical model of the earth which helps us to find a place on earth. Latitudes are the horizontal imaginary lines that run parallel to the equator. Longitudes are vertical imaginary lines that run from the North Pole to the South Pole.